on the syllabus? Okay, same rules here. If it's not on the syllabus, it's not going to be on your test. Believe me, I know your syllabus better than anybody because I check all your test questions. So I know what my content's supposed to be. I've covered everything in this PowerPoint. So if it's on here and you don't understand something, then you need to go back to the pages that I tell you and refer to that. Oh yeah, and speaking of that, let's just talk about this one test question that we gave points back for, which just pissed me off. The question about the tube feeding, it was a select all that apply. Continuous tube feeding. You're going to let the head up 15 minutes.
30
If it's continuous, their head of the bed stays raised.
All
If
the
it's
time.
intermittent, it's 30 to an hour. Where was that information? In a box that I told you. Go look at the box. But you guys wanted to pick the 15 minutes. So don't be tricked up by little changes in numbers like that, okay? If I tell you to go look at a box, it's because the box is important, okay? Or the pages I have up here, those are the pages I want you to, if you have a question, go focus in on those pages and see if you can find the answer. Because I do a lot of work before I come in here to make sure that I have one of them. Okay, so we're going to talk about hormones. We're going to talk about 5 different ones in here. We're going to talk about 6 really because there's 2 with the pancreas. We're going to talk about thyroid. We're going to talk about parathyroid, the adrenal glands, pituitary gland hormone, and then your pancreas with insulin and glucagon. So you only have 1 lecture after me. So you should have had a lot of topics that you've covered so far. We're going to talk about fluid and electrolyte imbalance with a lot of our hormones. Have you talked about that in almost every single lecture that you've had?
Yes.
Something to do with fluid and electrolytes?
Yes.
Almost every single one. Can you see why at the beginning of the semester we tell you those 4 hours are super important? Because they're like the basis for a lot of your other content. We're going to specifically talk in here about glucose regulation, and you may have heard a little bit about that. I know we talked about it with cognition in that you can't store glucose in your brain, but we're going to talk about that. Cellular regulation in here, how fast your cells turn over and metabolize things. Have you talked about nutrition in every single content?
Yes.
Are you terrible at diet questions?
Yes.
Yes, you are. Yes. It's a true thing. Every nursing student in level 2 is terrible at diet questions. Can you see that they're going to be on every test from now on, including your NCLEX? Okay, so nutrition.
Just eating ice. They're only allowed ice.
I would simplify things, yes.
Are you going to post this on campus?
I am after my lecture is complete because I have slides that give you answers to questions like after, and if I give it to you now, then you'll cheat. Okay? I still want you to pay attention though. Tissue integrity. Have you talked about that? Did you talk about that with mobility?
Yes.
Did you talk about that with any other contents?
Yeah.
Like what? Oxygenation. What about cardiac? Oh, can you see how we have a whole person now? A whole big person. Sensory perception. Did you talk about that? With cognition for sure. What about with mobility? What about with oncology? The changes they have to smell and taste and things like that. Perfusion. We're like tying up loose ends here. Okay. Immunity. You better say yes. Since you just had 4 hours of that. Ooh, what about elimination?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So you talked about your GI and your GU. So you talked about a lot of this stuff. So we're going to take all of those big concepts from all those topics and we're going to put them with our endocrine system and see how it all relates together. Okay? The first one we're going to talk about is the thyroid. And these are the pages. It's only 11 pages. And some of those are pictures. I mean, so y'all, go look up stuff if you don't understand. So, I mean, there's lots of pictures and lots of boxes, but those are 11 pages. So, who wants to tell me, I'm going to give you, see if it's on the front page so I know somebody did it. Who wants to tell me what thyroid hormone does in the body? Like, tell me something that it does.
Regulates body
Okay, regulates your, what'd you say?
Metabolism rate.
Okay, so your metabolism rate, how fast you burn calories.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, what'd you say?
I said the same thing.
Okay.
But pituitary, secretion.
Helps your mood.
What do you mean by helps your immune system?
Yeah.
Did you get that, Alba?
No, I said mood.
Oh, your mood, yes. Oh, yes, your mood, absolutely. Thyroid patients are crazy, I'm just telling you. Oh, and yeah, and I know you all videotape me. If I say anything stupid, please don't let it get to administration. I'm just saying. If I get fired, I'm blaming someone in this room.
We would not do that to you. We love you.
I mean, I don't care that you videotape me. Some instructors really do care, so you're really supposed to ask permission. But I don't care.
Oh, thank you.
If you videotape me, whatever. Okay, so you told me your metabolic rate. What else does it do?
Body temperature.
Yeah.
Your body temperature. It helps regulate your body temperature.
Muscle control, brain development.
Some muscle control, brain development, especially in children. If you've got a kid that has a thyroid disorder, they can be developmentally delayed or have some sort of mental retardation because they lack the thyroid hormone or they have too much. What else do you think it does?
I saw a lot like with menstrual periods. What was that about?
It does affect your menstrual period, but it doesn't control it. This is things that thyroid hormone controls.
Oh.
So we'll talk about the signs and symptoms and what it affects in a minute. Some bone development, yes. It's not real big in that, but yes, it does muscle control and bone maintenance. What else? There's one other one.
Your heart.
Your respiratory rate and drive.
Fight or flight.
Fight or flight. It controls your sympathetic nervous system. So when you get all wound up about something, you release extra thyroid hormone. So those are the things that it does. So we have to talk about the negative feedback loop and how it's supposed to work and then what's wrong with it if it doesn't work. Here's a whole list of all the things you just told me. Your metabolic rate, heart rate, blood pressure, temperature, your digestion and how you burn calories, in your mood, the sympathetic nervous system. This is really for children because once your brain's developed, it really just affects your mood. And muscle control and bone maintenance. And you're going to see all these when we talk about the symptoms your patient's going to have. But here's our negative feedback loop. And what that means is something triggers this cycle to occur.
Bless you.
And what that is, when my T3 and T4, which are my thyroid hormones, are low, it tells my hypothalamus, you need to release some thyroid stimulating hormone to make my thyroid start releasing T3 and T4. And then when that T3 and T4 level gets up to normal where it's supposed to be, it shuts off the cycle. So when I'm talking about a client with hyperthyroidism, for some reason, T3 and T4 are high, T3 is low, the cycle's broken somewhere. So we're talking about the broken negative feedback loops. This one is normal. Low T3 and T4 stimulate my thyroid stimulating hormone to be released, which tells my thyroid to get busy and make thyroid hormone and brings it back in and shuts it off. But somewhere the process is broken with these patients. All right, normal lab values. What's my normal lab value for, which one do I have first on your sheet?
TSH.
Okay, TSH. What's my normal for TSH?
0.4 to 6.15.
0.3 to
0.3 to 4.5. I want you to use your labs out of Iggy, and I know there's a couple contradiction in there, and I'll point those out to you and tell you which ones I want you to use, okay? I know there's a contradiction about blood glucose in the book. What about T3? What's my normal? Okay, 7 to 205. 70 to 205. And what's my T4? 4 to 12. Do you know what the difference is between T3 and T4? Iodine. So this difference of iodine, whether one has iodine attached or not.
What's T3? You said
70 to 205.
And T4 was
T4 is 4 to 12.
T4 the one without iodine.
So you have to have iodine. You can Your thyroid cannot make T3 and T4 without iodine. Is that a problem in the United States?
No.
Is it a problem?
Yes.
I hear yes and no.
Not in the South.
Yes, it is, because I don't eat none of that stuff.
We have it in our home.
It's all your food. You buy
But I
any
mean, I'm talking about seafood like what she's saying. I
you
don't
buy any
eat
canned food?
it. No. Quit doing that. It's bad for you.
If you
I'm
eat
just
anything
chunky.
with salt in it, you get iodine. We have enough iodine in our diet that's usually not an issue. In other countries, like third world countries, that is an issue. They don't have enough iodine. Yeah, Casey.
I'm confused. I have hypothyroidism, and when I go to get my labs drawn, they always want my TSH between a 0.5 and a 1.5.
Are you on medication?
Yes.
That's why.
That's
This
the
is just
therapeutic
for
level.
this is for our patient that's just normal. If you're on medication, it's a little bit different. So you need to know your normals, and on your slide they'll be on there. They're right there. Okay. So you just need to know what the normals are, because I might ask you which of these labs would stimulate the negative feedback cycle.
4.5 and not 5 like on the slide.
Oh, what's your book says 5. Your book says 5. Yeah, your book says 5. Here's the deal. I ain't gonna ask you
If
a
it's that
question
close,
that's
you
point
know.
one off.
Right. It's going to be a lot off.
You're gonna know it. It's gonna be 5.8 or 6.2. I'm not gonna ask you something 1 point off. That's ridiculous. And the other thing about your labs is, I know some instructors say use your lab book, some say use Iggy, some say Google, and I don't care. But when you go to the hospital, if I go to Singing River,
They're gonna
they
have
have a
different.
set of norms. If I go to Memorial for the same labs, their norms might be a little bit different. They're close, but they're not exactly the same. So I need you to know a range, and I'm not going to try to trick you on a question. Okay? But if I gave you a question that said that your T3 was 312 and your T4 was 15, that would be the answer as to which one should trigger, that would be your answer. Those are too high. Or if I give you really low ones, which one would trigger TSH to be released? I'm not going to give you anything tricky, I promise. It takes too much work to get tricky questions. Okay, so if you're looking at the labs for this hyperthyroid patient, which way is my TSH going to be? Hyperthyroidism.
Down.
TSH.
TSH would be down. For hyper is down. T3 and 4 would be up, and your TSH would. I did my research. That's what my paper says.
I love you.
She's so serious. That's what her paper says. Can you repeat that?
Your TSH would be down, and your T3 and 4 would be up.
Yes. My T3 and T4 are elevated. I have hyperthyroidism. I have too much thyroid hormone. And for some reason, my TSH is just not doing what I need it to do.
They're going to be inverted.
Right. So they're inverted. Exactly. So when I'm talking about hyperthyroidism, I'm talking about the actual thyroid hormones, which are T3 and T4. This is just my hormone to stimulate the process. And they're exact opposites. That's correct. So get with your little seat partner here. Do not get out your Iggy books, because I know there's a list of 452 symptoms
Did all mine.
your patient's going to have. I want you to think about this question right here. What kind of symptoms is my patient going to have? Cardiac, nervous system, digestive system, integument, and tell me what your patient's going to look like. Don't look in your book.
Just busted. Just think of somebody who looks scared and busted.
Well, I'll go back to this. Here's what it does. So think about these things. What's it do for your cardiac system?
Messes it all
What's
up.
it do for oxygen?
Increases your heart. Oh.
Write down a couple symptoms. What your patient's going to look like.
Bug-eyed and busted.
So they're going to be hyper, running all over the place, acting like a crazy person.
Yes, I learned about her. Her name is Hyper something.
You must have the books.
So much fun.
These books are awesome.
They're amazing.
My med search book, I love it.
They have some good ones. I can series. They have some good ones.
Corey was like, you can't do your ocean book.
Think about integument, so your skin and hair. Think about cardiac. Think about oxygenation. Think about the reproductive system. Muscles, it controls some muscle movement. What are your muscles going to be like? If I have too much.
Increase the metabolic rate, so your metabolism would be increased. Oh, go get her Gertrude. That's who that was. Go read it. It's so funny.
You get like.
Shut up.
Is that done first?
Okay,
Who you do that with?
Jacob, tell me something cardiac wise. What's my patient going to be like? Give me a vital sign. What's their vital signs going to be like? Elevated heart rate. Everything's going in overdrive. Everything's fast. Speed it up. Elevated heart rate. What else? What else might I see?
Elevated blood pressure.
Might have a little bit of high blood pressure.
Increased hunger.
Okay? They're going to be hungry all the time. But what's going to happen?
Teeny tiny.
Okay, they're going to be teeny tiny because they're burning all those calories, but they're hungry all the time.
Their BMI would be up.
So what about their GI system? What's happening there?
Diarrhea.
Right. They're pooping a lot because everything, they don't even have time to digest stuff. It just goes right through them. Really, truly, think about your hyperthyroid patient as a hummingbird. Have you ever watched a hummingbird?
Yes.
They never stop. And that's what these patients are like. They're just crazy all the time, moving. They look like they're on speed. So what about, okay, so cardiac, we know that their blood pressure is high, their heart rate's high, their nervous system,
They'd be super sassy cans, wouldn't they?
they would be, they're kind of jittery, super sassy. Yeah. Digestive, we talked about that. They're hungry, they're burning a lot of calories, they're not digesting anything, so they may have some diarrhea, and you might see some weight loss. What about integument? I heard you guys talking about that over here. Tell me what happens with their skin and hair.
Thinning hair.
Okay, your hair is falling out so fast, it doesn't even have time to replace itself. So you're going to have this nice, soft, thin hair because what's there is new, but it doesn't replace itself fast enough. What about your skin cells?
Strong.
They're going to have nice, soft, smooth skin because those
Oh,
skin
really?
cells are replacing all the time.
Oh,
They're constantly shedding
Okay,
these
hot.
skin cells. Hot. It said, we said thyroid hormone controls their temperature.
Yeah.
The hallmark sign of hyperthyroidism is elevated temperature. Okay? And that is a problem. If your patient has a temperature, so your patient comes in and their temperature always runs 98.8, and now you're taking it and it's 99.8, you have a problem developing. And in your book, there's one little box that says an increase in a temperature of 1 degree is reportable to the physician. Okay, so that is a hallmark sign, is an increased temperature, is that your patient has a thyroid crisis coming on. Musculoskeletal, we already talked about them being kind of hyper and busy. You'll see that when they reach for stuff, they have that busy trimmer, you know, when they're picking stuff up. They have the shakes a little bit. Reproductive, what do you think's going on there?
Acid, their period's acid.
Their periods stop. They have reproduction issues in that they can't conceive, but they have an increased libido. Okay? I'm just saying.
So
In your
like
book, I mean,
They want it all the time. They just can't make no babies.
So even that is like on steroids. Okay? So can you see what a patient kind of looks like?
y'all don't become my husband.
Okay. So here's your slide right here. Here's your slide right here that gives you all your symptoms. I know you kind of were jotting them down as we went. But you're going to see the tremors, the diarrhea. You see his pants are pinned because he's got weight loss. Menstrual changes, the fine straight hair. We're going to talk about the bulging eyes in a minute. Facial flushing, that's from the temperature increase. They can't tolerate the heat. Tachycardia. So there's your little picture of simplify your 410 22 symptoms that are in your book, okay? Think about your patient, a little hummingbird on speed. That's what they look like, okay? So we're going to talk about Graves' disease just a little bit separately because it's the most common one that you're going to see. And the one distinguishing feature about it is the exthelmos, which is those bulging eyes. Okay, not all hyperthyroid patients have the bulging eyes, but it is indicative of Graves' disease. And they also have what's called pretibial mixed edema, and that is like on the front of their shins, and it's like that orange peel, waxy stuff on the front of their shins. I've never seen it, and there's not a picture of it in your book, but they say that that's a hallmark symptom of Graves' disease. Okay? And that is the most common. Happens more in females than males. Here's the one thing. Once their eyes change and they have that protruding eyeballs, even if they go on the medication and get their thyroid hormone under control, the muscles and ligaments in their eyes have changed, and that never goes back to the way it was before. Do you think that happens gradually or quickly? It happens gradually. My grandmother had Graves' disease, and we didn't even realize it until like we saw pictures of her like 10 years prior and then now, and how much her eyes were protruding.
Could surgery fix it?
Nope. So you see on the hyperthyroid pictures, I always have the bulging eyeball lady. You're gonna just remember her. She's on speed. She's got the bulging eyeballs. She's real busy. It is they do attribute it to an autoimmune disorder, but I don't teach immunity, so don't worry about that. Okay. Then over here is a toxic multinodular goiter. That's a benign condition, but it's a benign tumor that grows on your thyroid, and it produces thyroid hormone, and so you'll see the same symptoms in that patient. What does thyroiditis mean? What does itis mean?
Inflammation.
For some reason, I have some sort of inflammation of my thyroid, and it's causing it to produce extra thyroid hormone. And then this is a big one right here, excessive use of thyroid replacement hormone. So if I have a patient on the other end of the spectrum who has hypothyroidism, and they're on Synthroid, which we're going to talk about because it's another drug on their syllabus. Yep, it is. We're going to talk about levothyroxine in particular. If I take too much levothyroxine, I can create hyperthyroidism. Okay? So, well, we're going to talk about overcorrection when we talk about the medicine. So those are like the most common ones. There's a list of stuff in your book that causes this, but you're not going to see the real rare ones, so why are we wasting our time on those? Let's talk about the ones you might see.
So would this patient also have fatigue since they're wasting a lot of calories? And
Yes,
stuff?
they have muscle wasting and they have fatigue because even though they're taking in calories, they're not absorbing any nutrients.
So they're gonna be tired.
Oh yeah, let's talk about that for a minute. They go to bed at night. Do you think they sleep great?
No.
No, they have insomnia because they can't turn it off. It's constantly going. So yes, they are fatigued also. Okay, so what do you think you need to do to take care of this person? They came in the hospital, they got hyperthyroidism. What do you think you need to think about? What kind of things? Okay, cool them down. So I go in their room and it's set on 50 degrees.
You're freezing.
I'm freezing. Are you comfortable today?
Yep.
And they say, yes, I'm fine. What do you do with their air conditioner?
Leave it.
Leave it alone. So you want them in a nice, cool environment. They're not good patients to have when your air conditioner is broke. What else do you think you need to think about?
Their meals,
Nutrition. What kind of diet do you think they need to be on?
high calorie, high protein.
High calorie, high protein if you can get it. So you bring a great big breakfast and a great big lunch and a great big dinner. Is that good?
No.
What
They
kind
need-
of- what-
they need more
six
little small meals.
Right. I need to have little high protein, high calorie snacks available throughout the day. So I want small, frequent meals, high calories, high protein. They're really, really busy people. They like grab and go things, you know. What else do you think I need to think about? I need to think about their heart rate. Because if my patient comes in with a thyroid problem and they already have a little bit of an increased heart rate, and now they have a temperature and their heart rate gets higher, in level 4, not in level 2, you're gonna learn about thyroid storm, and they can actually go into AFib. So I wanna keep an eye on their heart rate. And that being said, with the AFib, if they're in the hospital, what else might I wanna see? I might wanna see a telemonitor, just to keep an eye on that heart rhythm and see what it's doing. What else do I need to know?
Would you have, like, activities for them to just do to keep them busy, or would you want them to rest?
What do you guys think?
Rest.
Rest. I want them in a nice, restful, quiet environment. So let me ask you this. If they're in the hospital and, you know, Billy Bob comes in and then Susie James comes in and they're all arguing and fighting while your patient's in the room, is that helping your patient relax and chill out?
No.
So who's going to take care of that?
You are the nurse.
Right. You're going to say, I need to limit visitors to 1 or 2 at a time. You can ask your patient. You know, it would be more restful if you had 1 visitor at a time. Put a sign on the door, stop at the nurse's station before you go in. You're controlling that environment to keep that patient, you know, as calm and quiet as possible. Let me see what else was on my list here.
Fluid and electrolytes diarrhea.
Yes, you can have some fluid electrolyte problems, but usually this person's in the hospital before you, before that occurs.
Oh, okay.
But if they have chronic diarrhea, what kind of electrolyte problem are you looking at? Your calcium and your potassium are probably going to be pretty low, so you're going to have to replace that. Hold on, I'm looking at my list of things here. What else do you think you need to know? Someone said about nutrition. We talked about their meals. Do you think you need to weigh them?
Yeah, daily weight.
Okay, let me ask you this. If I'm on a diet and I weigh myself every single day, does my weight change every single day?
It depends. It's in the morning. It fluctuates 2 pounds.
Yeah.
Right. So
Other
if
than
I'm
that,
doing
no.
a daily weight, I'm really checking for fluid. But if I'm weighing you twice a week, I'm really looking nutritionally, are you losing weight? So daily weights are usually an indication of fluid, and like a twice a week or weekly weight is really for your indication of nutritional status. But yes, I do need to monitor that and make sure. We talked about the meals. Oh, let's go back to the meals. So I really, really love regular Coke, and I really, really love spicy Mexican food. Do you think I need that?
Nope.
Right. So I need you to limit your caffeine intake. I need you to cut down on those hot, spicy foods that increase your calorie burn, because you already got a problem with calorie burn. And then one other thing about the patient who has the exthelmos. What kind of things do you think I need to think about? Okay, eye drops and dryness, because they can't really close their eyelid completely when they blink. So you need to teach them about lubricating eye drops. What else? Two more kind of important things with the eyes.
Oh, light. Like photosensitivity.
Okay, lights, sunglasses. Can your eyeballs get sunburned?
Yes.
Yep, sure can. They need to wear sunglasses when they're outside, because they can't even close their eyes to really protect them. So sunglasses. And one more thing when they're sleeping. What do you think you need to teach them? Yeah, we teach them to tape them with paper tape. Just to use paper tape and hold them shut, because they really can't close them the whole way on their own. So paper tape to keep their eyes shut. So you think you can take care of that person? Like you could do the right thing if they came in the hospital?
Yeah.
You wouldn't be cooking them, you know, you wouldn't be feeding them big meals. Okay, I want you to look at these medications. On your sheet, are these highlighted?
Yes.
Are they in italics? That's because they're level 3 drugs. But I don't want you to leave level 2 and think, well, geez, my patient has this problem and she didn't say there was anything we can do for him. Because there is, okay? These medications, PTU and methimazole are medications from level 3 that we're going to talk about. Lugol solution is an iodine solution we'll talk about in level 3, and radioactive iodine, we'll talk about that in level 3 and 4. So we will talk about those, just not in here, but I just didn't want to leave that box empty because I don't like empty boxes, okay? And I want you to know there is a treatment for it. We're just not going to talk about it in here. It's not on your list. I know this. This surgery, though, we might talk about safety issues with this surgery in particular. So this person had a thyroidectomy. What is the thyroid? What's that mean? I took out the thyroid, either all of the thyroid or part of the thyroid, okay? So you don't even really need to know anything about the surgery. Just look at her, where her incision is. What kind of things do you think you need to think about? Airway is your number one thing to think about with her, is your airway. Because what if that nurse that came before me didn't keep these drains compressed, and now all of this drainage is all backed up right here? What am I doing to my airway? I'm closing it off. Or I have a nice big hematoma under there that you can't see from the surface, and now I've blocked off my airway. So airway is the biggest priority. Your surgery patients, you do things like SCDs, right? Maybe TED hose. They don't do those much anymore. They just itch, I'm just going to tell you. But SCDs if you're in the hospital. What else do you think you might need to think about with her? Early ambulation. I want her to get up and I want her to be moving around. Okay? So let me ask you a question. See these little drains right here? So you're getting, I don't know, Susie out of bed, and she stands up and those drains fall. Do you think that feels good?
No.
No. So when you get your patient out of bed and they have drains, be cognizant of those drains and either hold on to them or clip them with a safety pin to the gown, you know, so that your patient's not getting up and yanking her drains out. Those things don't feel great coming out. What about compressing these? Do they need to be compressed?
Yes.
Yes. Are they effective if they're just wide open?
No.
No. If they're wide open, I'm draining by gravity. And if I'm just laying there, are they really draining? But if I compress them and it has some negative pressure, as it opens up, it kind of sucks the stuff out. So you need to make sure that you don't have big blood clots formed in the tubing itself. And you need to make sure that your drains are compressed and you're cognizant when you're getting your patient out of bed where the drains are. What about incentives? I heard someone over here say something about coughing.
Yeah.
What'd you say about it?
Incentive spirometer.
Okay, do I want her to cough or not cough? No. I do want her to take deep breaths because I don't want her to get atelectasis or, you know, collapsed lungs. But I don't want her to be forcefully coughing because then she's going to break the little blood vessels where we stitched her back together and we're going to have bigger problems. So deep breathing, turning. What if my patient does have to cough?
Splint it.
Splint it. Just like you would an abdominal incision, make sure that your patient knows to take some sort of a little towel, even their hand, and splint that when they cough so they're not putting a lot of pressure on that incision.
The other day we had like some EAQs, and one of them said to put the splint over it, and the other one said to put it near it. Which one is the
What
correct?
kind of what surgery?
I mean, it was just like splinting, I'm not sure, but.
It wasn't
Was it abdominal?
Well, I had an abdominal incision and I put it right over the incision, held
held
pressure on it when I coughed because that's the only way it didn't hurt.
I would
You feel like your gut's
same
gonna
with
fall
the
out.
throat too.
I mean, so yes, just gentle pressure on the incision and then cough. Do people, when they're waking up from anesthesia and they've just pulled the tube out of their throat, cough unintentionally?
Yes.
Yeah, so if you're the nurse in the recovery room, you're going to be aware of that and making sure that you're helping protect your patient. There's one other big thing that you need to be aware of with this surgery, and we'll talk about it with our parathyroids. But where are your parathyroid hormones? Or your glands?
Behind.
They're right behind the thyroid. They're actually attached to the back side of the thyroid. So if I take out my thyroid and I accidentally disrupt my parathyroid hormones, I might have some calcium problems. And we're going to talk all about that with parathyroid hormone. And we'll come back to this just to remind you. So airway, I still want to do early ambulation. I still want to wear my SCDs to protect myself from blood clots. I do want to deep breathe, but I don't want to forcefully cough. They're going to tell you that their throat is sore. Yep, I'm sure it is. So ice chips, something cold, something warm will help with their sore throat. But those are your potential complications. Thyroid storm, is that on your sheet?
Yes, ma'am.
Is it highlighted?
Yes, ma'am.
That's because that's in level 4. But that is a whole series of cardiac problems because of this overproduction of thyroid hormone. And we're going to learn how to take care of that patient in level 4, okay?
Okay.
But there is a complication. I just wanted you to know there is one, but we don't care about it in here. We're not that advanced. But it's true. But it does have an extremely high heart rate
feel like we're-
that can put you in AFib, the temperature, and the hypertension. So just be aware that it does have a complication. These are two things that you need to go look at. An older patient with thyroid problems, there's an assessment there, the nursing assessment on the older client for thyroid, and then a focused assessment for the thyroid. Let's just talk about that real quick. Does my patient have a goiter?
Maybe.
They might. They may have a goiter, they may not have a goiter. It depends, because really all that is hypertrophy of the thyroid gland, and it depends on how much it's overworking. If my patient has a goiter, what do I want to do with it? I want to let it alone.
Yeah.
Okay? I don't want to say, oh, Chelsea, that's a good goiter. I love it. Because as I'm doing that, what am I doing to thyroid hormone? I'm moving it, and I'm having to release more, and I can have a bigger problem. So when the family's like, wow, look at grandma's goiter, please don't touch grandma's goiter. Okay? Leave it alone. So you don't want to be palpating that goiter and releasing additional thyroid hormone. What do you think your patients complain about?
It would be pressure in.
Swallowing. They usually say, I just feel like I have a lump in my throat every time I swallow.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, you do. That's why. But that's usually their biggest complaint when they go to the doctor initially. And so we don't want to mess with it. We all know it's there. We're going to take care of it, but we don't want to be pushing on it. So just go look at those two boxes about your older patient and then the focused assessment on your thyroid gland, okay? So, any questions about hyperparathyroidism? What's she look like?
Crazy. Like a
Crazy.
hummingbird.
Crazy hummingbird, okay? All over the place, just all over the place. You can't pin her down for nothing. Now we're going to talk about hypothyroidism. So, how do my labs look?
Total
T3
opposite.
and T4 are going to go which way?
Down.
Down. I'm not producing enough. And even though my hypothalamus says make more stimulating hormone, for some reason my thyroid's just not doing it. So my cycle's broken somewhere. My labs are opposite again. This one's working overtime, trying to wake this one up, but it's just not working. Okay? So, whoops, don't look at that slide. You know what's wrong with our hummingbird. So what do you think this person looks like?
The complete opposite. Weak, sluggish, just-
Tired.
Okay, they do have a lack of energy for a totally different reason. The other one is just, the hummingbird is just worn out from exhaustion from constantly being on the go. This one has fatigue because they don't have any thyroid hormone. They don't have nothing. Okay? So
No energy.
they can be
producing
overweight. Because what's happening with the GI tract? It slows down. So,
nothing. Yeah.
constipation. They maybe are eating a little bit, but they're hanging on to weight and they can't lose weight and they have constipation and so they have digestive problems. What about their nervous system?
To be slow to react.
Yeah, they have a little slower reaction. They're real irritable. I'm just going to tell you. Hypothyroid patients, they get nuts. My son-in-law has hypothyroidism, and when he's not on his medication, he's crazy. Okay? I'm just telling you. Don't put that on Facebook
Geary
either.
with an
Huh?
normally I take Geary with an antidepressant.
He doesn't take that, but now that he's on his levothyroxine, he's good. But yes, they get a little crazy if they're off their medications. Okay? They just really do. The way it is. Cardiac, what do you think's happened?
Low, slow.
They have some bradycardia. What about cold or heat?
They're always cold.
They're always cold. You'll see them with their sweater. You're not cold?
No.
Yeah, they get cold, especially your older patients.
Yeah.
They can't tolerate the cold at all.
Yeah.
That's why when you go in their little houses and their houses are turned up to 80 degrees, you're like, you know,
And it's
because they
cooler
like it nice
outside
and
in the
hot.
summer.
Airflow. Musculoskeletal, they're sluggish.
Yeah.
Instead of having this spastic tremor, they're real sluggish. It takes them a long time to get going. And reproductive, they have the same reproductive issues in that they lack menstrual cycles and they have trouble with reproduction and they have a decreased libido. So this patient's the exact opposite of your other patient. Okay? Do you see that?
Yeah.
Because your hormones are controlling what's going on with the patient. So she's the exact opposite. And up here, I don't know if you can see on the picture, but see underneath her eyes how she has the big bags underneath her eyes? A lot of times your hypothyroid patients, especially your elderly ones, will have that big pocket of fluid underneath their eyes that makes like a big bag under their eyes, and that is called mixed edema. And that is our complication that we're going to learn about in level 4 if it goes untreated. But that is a mixture of like fluid and mucus, and it collects underneath the skin, and it causes the problems when it gets to their lungs. So that's what we're going to learn about in level 4 and what we're going to do to prevent it. But that's why I have her picture up there, so you can kind of get the gist of how they look. Because who in the hospital are you going to be taking care of? Young people?
No.
Or older people?
Very rarely.
Older people.
Very rarely.
So-
Like a
They
young
still have
person.
hair loss.
Oh yeah, so they're gonna have some hair loss. What's their skin gonna be like? Don't look at that slide. Dry. They're gonna have dry skin. Is that a skin integrity issue?
Yes.
Yeah. They're gonna have. So what are you gonna teach them? Lotion. Moisturizing soaps or whatever you're showering with, and then lotion or some type of moisturizing oil to keep your skin nice and moisturized. Constipation is up there. These right here are the late clinical signs when they start having weight gain, and this is mixed edema coma with the changes in level of consciousness. So those are some late signs. Brittle hair, brittle nails. They're not hungry, but they don't seem to be able to lose any weight. Extreme fatigue. Oh yeah, when the mixed edema gets really bad, they have that real thick tongue, and the slurred speech is a primary thing that you'll see.
So they don't have over hair growth, it's still kind of like brittle and.
They have brittle, dry hair, yeah. But they're not replacing stuff very quickly. So as it comes out, it's still thinning because they're just not replacing it as fast. Okay, here's the causes of this. The primary cause is destruction of that thyroid gland from either surgery or radiation, okay? Can you understand that? If I take out my thyroid gland, I'm not producing thyroid hormone, so I'm creating a problem. Y'all want a break?
Yeah.
Take a break, come back at the top of the hour.
Oh. So would that be two? I wonder if I can charge my boss. She said top of the hour. I don't know. I said so like she was back there and I was like, okay.
It sounds like, because if I'd have told him I'm ready, you'd have known too. No, you can't do that.
It's a supplement. It's a supplement. Sometimes it'll be better. Every day next week. And the next week. Because they took me to some old things. Oh, God, that's funny.
A lot of people get those.
Yeah, I have two.
I'm about to get another pair of heels. I gotta have basic for it. There's a saying for it. I wish we could have like all. Your voice, so it's sure. I was waiting until I should look at it.
You see me just bring my legs. I didn't have to try. I'm telling you, Laura, one day I went through the leg day. It's pretty ridiculous. That's like the first day I walked in for he and I walked into the gym. We were doing leg press. Like, can you see me do a leg press? Like, all right, look, I don't know if I can do this because I haven't hit the leg press. So here we go. And Shane's got all these like